Is Cinderella a social engineer? That terrifying monster trying to break into the office, or did he just forget his badge again? Find out with Work Bites, a new security awareness training series from Infosec. This series features a colorful array of fantastical characters, including vampires, pirates, aliens, and zombies as they interact in the workplace and encounter today's most common cybersecurity threats. Infosec created Work Bites to help organizations empower employees by delivering short, entertaining, and impactful training to teach them how to recognize and keep the company secure from cyber threats. Compelling stories and likable characters mean that the lessons will stick. So go to infosecinstitute.com/free to learn more about the series and explore a number of other free cybersecurity training resources we assembled for CyberWork listeners just like you. Again, go to infosecinstitute.com/free and grab all of your free cybersecurity training resources today. Today on CyberWork, Nir Valtman, CEO and co-founder of Arnica, joins me to discuss developer behavior-based security. To put it shortly, there's lots and lots of ways that backdoors or vulnerabilities can make it into developer code. One door that we can close on these intrusions is implementing processes that detect behavior anomalies in developers. Think of it like your bank monitoring for unusual purchases, calling you to ask whether you really did just spend $300 on a bobblehead from The Last of Us that's shipping from Brazil. If you did, not judging, full speed ahead. But if not, we've got a problem on our hands. Nir explains the benefits and the limitations of behavior-based security measures, as well as tips for developers in training, today on CyberWork. Welcome to this week's episode of the CyberWork with Infosec podcast. Each week, we talk with a different industry thought leader about cybersecurity trends, the way those trends affect the work of Infosec professionals, while offering tips for breaking in or moving up the ladder in the cybersecurity industry. Nir Valtman, CEO and founder of Arnica, is an experienced information security leader with over 13 years of experience in the space. Nir is a frequent public speaker at leading conferences globally, including Black Hat, DEF CON, B-Sides, and RSA. Previous to Arnica, Nir was VP Data Security at Finastra and was on the advisory board of Salt Security. So if you've been following the show week to week, you will notice that we have a lot of DevSecOps, a lot of DevSecOps happening right around now. And it seems like we're going to have a nice little sort of book of knowledge here at the end of these. And I'm very, very excited because it is a fascinating topic. So Nir, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to CyberWork.
Thanks, Chris. My pleasure being here.
Great. So can we start with your origin story? How did you first get interested in computers and tech? Because I see from your experiences that during your time in the Israeli Air Force, you were a manager and trainer of infrastructure courses. Now, had you been working with this kind of tech at an even younger age as well?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, when I was 13, my parents sent me to a course of Visual Basic.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was a nice course to learn.
Yeah.
Thing is that I didn't really like to develop, so one of those classes that I had, I just decided to write a small script that deletes a few file system files, and then they kicked me out of the course, which was that's awesome. I like that. So,
sure, yeah.
It wasn't hacking, but it was just I just didn't enjoy the course that much.
Right.
So, but in the Israeli Air Force, I wasn't a developer per se, and I wasn't in 8200 like many of the Israelis. But in my case, yes, I did the tech stuff. Back then, we called it IT and security. Today, you can call it, in some cases, the things that we did, DevOps. It's just some automation, some maintenance, to servers and such.
Yeah.
I pretty much get some of those expertise in the Army.
Yeah, and you already had a flavor for it or a taste for it before then. So when you were when you did your time, you said, yeah, I have this tech background and this tech acuity, and so that sort of moves into the instructor portion of it.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was natural.
Very nice. So, moving further onto that, I like to take the temperature of our guests' career journey by looking through their LinkedIn profiles. And I think yours is interesting in part because it's almost like the sort of textbook progression in terms of building on skills and abilities towards like a natural conclusion. So after the aforementioned infrastructure course trainer, You moved into information security consultancy. Then you were a senior technical consultant, then security architect, up to chief security officer, CSO, and then a long stretch at NCR Corporation as a security architect, and then chief information security officer. So, it's like that perfect steady upward line in terms of role and responsibilities. You doing the guts of security, and then the management of security teams, and then the architect of the security plans, and then finally the head of planning for all things security. And I just mentioned that because from there you moved into the role of director, head of application security at that job before co-founding Arnica. And since the AppSec director role stands out and dovetails into our discussion today, especially since you mentioned you weren't really into, developing developer stuff back in the day, can you tell me about how this procession of roles and tasks led you from an overall security architecture and big C-suite decisions into the specific world of developers and AppSec?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I didn't really pick management. I picked leadership.
Right.
And in some cases, when you're in leadership, you get into the management positions naturally, right?
Can you just before we go too far, can you sort of make the distinction between your definitions of management versus leadership?
Yeah, I mean, management is typically, being a people manager, direct manager for people, right? HR manager.
People directly report to you, right?
Exactly. What I picked is leading people, leading changes. And that's essentially what I did through consultancy, through security architecture roles. That's the thing that I really like. I like to make an impact. I like to make a change. And at some point when we had to grow the practice, either in consultancy or had to grow the practice within the different roles that I had in the companies, it seemed to be a natural fit. To have also, people management beyond that leadership. But everything boils down to what type of an impact can you do?
Yeah. So
with or without people.
Was the sort of AppSec piece of it, did that seem like a left turn to you at all? Or was that sort of still part of what you were doing when you were working with architecture and so forth?
It was still part of the things that I've been doing. The thing is that, when I started developing Visual Basic back then, it was pretty natural, to write some simple pieces of software. When I was in IT, it was fairly simple to write VB scripts, which was also scripting, not exactly coding, but still, doing some automation. And at that time, when I was in consulting, I also did my bachelor's degree in computer science, which obviously got me additional skills through algorithms and such. And that's the thing that was a bit more natural for me to take more, AppSec roles. Rather than maybe IT security roles, but still, I'm writing code till today.
Yes. Okay.
I'm just making sure that I'm not rusty in those things.
So you do keep a handle on the actual sort of hands-on work of it.
Yes, I'm maintaining our open source at Arnica. So don't judge my code, but judge the results of it.
I couldn't possibly. So how does the work of CEO of your own company differ from the types of jobs you did before, especially within the AppSec or DevSec space? Like, what are some of your most common tasks now on a week-by-week basis, and how much is the aforementioned leadership, and how much is the hands-on, and how much is the sort of like overseeing of what other people are doing?
I think it's completely different being a vendor versus being on the buyer side. Right. You have a completely different job routine. First of all, when you work as a leader in a company where you need to buy certain products, you need to explain to your management what is the justification for the tools. You need to go to Gartner, look at the right trends. When you buy a software, you need to explain to procurement why you're buying that software. You need to build an entire process around how you deploy a software and how do essentially you rationalize the products and the processes that you're trying to embrace in the company. When you're a vendor, the explanation goes completely to the different direction. You need to have the messaging to procurement, of course, but it's not a messaging that you're used to. It's not a messaging that, every company works differently. And therefore, what you need to convey is more of the value and the simplicity of what you do to the buyer, right? And the buyer then needs to go and build that case to ensure that your product is actually being acquired, right? So it's completely different angles at the same space. And at the end of the day, when you're trying to lead with a specific thought within a company, it's in a different scale than if you're doing that for the market, right?
Right. Okay.
So even Fortune 500 like NCR, right? You're trying to build a new process. Okay, so it's limited to maximum about maybe 40,000 people that you can impact. When you're a vendor, you can impact millions.
Yes, for sure. Now, from a practical perspective, can you kind of walk me through either a day or a week of your current role? Like what does your morning look like? What's your afternoon look like? What are the stick points? What are the points where the to-do list goes up in flames and so forth?
In this role or the previous roles?
This role, yeah, your current role.
Oh yeah. So a few things. So first of all, I am very obsessed about customer success.
Yes.
And I'm very obsessed about feedback. And in some cases, it's easy just to hop on a call, talk with someone, get some feedback about the product, things that are working well, things that you can improve. That's great. I have quite a lot of those. But as you know, working with people, you will not get 100% of the time an honest feedback. You will get the things that they will want to tell you for you to be happy. Yep. And therefore, we also have certain analytics tools that we deployed within the product that help me better understand which features are being used, where we need to double down, what is, maybe we have frustrated users. How do I identify those? So we have both aggregative view of, for example, which features are being used, and more individual views in which, instead of watching Netflix, I will just go and watch, full story sessions and see how users are actually using the product, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's a typical day that touches the product spectrum that I'm handling.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm also looking for interesting partnerships, interesting areas where we can have an impact. If it's something that I see that is going on in the market, I will write a blog post. I will encourage someone else to write a blog post. And I work very closely, with the developers, with the customers. We have even customers that are not paying anything because they're freemium customers. We have Slack channels with them, and they get us feedback because they want their freemium to be better.
Yes, right.
And we're happy to do that. At the end of the day, freemium is freemium, but it's bi-directional. You also give me free advice.
Yes.
So
that makes perfect sense, because the freemium is never just like I'm going to take this free thing and then leave. Like you want, if you're going to use it, there's a pretty good chance that you want to have a reason to keep using it, and so you're gonna talk to whoever is in charge of making it better. And that makes sense. And I just also want to kind of shout out how clearly excited you are about your own products, that you're watching people using the products, during downtime and so forth like that. And, I know that not every job, requires that much sort of extracurricular love for the product, but I have to imagine that comes with the fact that, why you've made it to this position and sort of, CEO of this company and so forth.
That's how it looks to be. Thing is that I just every company needs to have very specific competencies. You need to have a strategy, a product, sales, marketing.
Yes.
Pretty much engineering. And thing is that because we're three co-founders, we are in a place where each one of us complete each other. So, for example, I like the product. I like to build the customer trust. I want to make sure that people love the product, and we get that thought leadership. On the different sides of my co-founders, I have Deco, which is our COO, and he runs sales, marketing, customer success, and such. Because at the end of the day, someone needs to operationalize everything, and that fits well because one, I don't have the time for that, and two, that's not my forte. I'm not the guy that of course everyone are in sales, but I'm not the guy that is a professional seller.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And then the last guy, which is my CTO, his name is Aran.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm considering myself as a quite technical guy, but Aran is on a completely different level.
He knows it inside and out and backwards and forwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so phenomenal, because he writes code, he runs our data science team, DevOps, the engineering, and eventually he just makes sure that everything that we do is built the right way at scale, right? And this is the reason why we had only maybe one downtime for a very short time since we launched. So it's phenomenal uptime, and obviously the technology needs to scale, which is what we have.
Right. I'm sorry. We'll get to your topic today.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I'm interested in just one more thing, because again, I'm trying to sort of visualize your work, and so I know that a good portion of your work with the product, like you said, you're watching people use the product, you're listening to vendor feedback and freemium feedback and so forth. Can you talk about the ways that you take in all this information and then filter it to your team so that they can make these changes and so forth? Because it's such a different view of what I think of as a standard CEO of a company, is that that you seem to be sort of almost basically rewriting like the instruction manual and then saying, like, put this into effect.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we also have a product manager in the company that gets a lot of my feedback. Everything that we do with analytics tools is also reviewed by marketing, customer success, product, and myself, which means that all of us have different angles at the same things. And based on those angles, we know where we need to double down or not. Now, thing is that sometimes we just put small comments on, like, full story. You can put a comment, we get it on Slack, and people start interacting on that until we make a decision. And the decision means we have a ticket for it. Okay, we have an issue on GitHub. That's one way. The other way to think about how we also make decisions is that in some cases we interact with Hacker News or with Reddit. And initially we created memes, funny memes about the topics that we're solving. And to get the right answer, you just need to post the wrong answer. And people will start commenting on things.
They're going to give you their insight. Yeah,
exactly.
They're going to push up their glasses and say, "Well, actually, yeah."
so we're fans of this approach.
Yeah,
it's either a blog post that goes completely, to the direction that says, "Oh, this is very opinionated. What do you think?" And testing out the water, right? Or memes or other directions. So yes, of course we've got certain posts that we've got dozens of thousands of upvotes there. But the bottom line is that the upvotes are not that important as the comments. So we're reading those comments, getting the confirmation that the direction that we're thinking about is the right direction, and then we're combining that data with some of the analytics that we see and make a decision. I gotta tell you though that a lot of that is a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can talk to customers, but then how much would that scale? You'll talk with 5, 50, 100.
Yep.
Fine. You got it.
Yeah.
But it's not big enough data set.
It's not a representative sample per se. It's a sample of people who want to open up a chat bar and talk to you. That's a different thing than people who just want to get the work done. Yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly. Not all companies have the same maturity.
Yeah.
Right?
The counterpoint to that, though, is that analytics research is very much sort of narrative building, but it's also sort of narrative building with a lot of faith in it. And so to sort of combine the analytics with sort of ear to the ground, thinking about what people are telling you, it almost feels like it's giving a little less murkiness to the idea of just looking at the raw data.
Correct, which is why when we're working on a feature, we also like to introduce those features to certain customers. Can be also premium customers. And then when we're asking, hey, would that be interesting for you to look at that? We can get yeses and nos, but the beautiful thing in our case is that the product is built on feature flags. So if there is a customer that expresses an interest, to look at a specific feature, then we can just enable that feature for that particular tenant, even if it's an alpha version, and let them test it out and get some feedback. And as we get more feedback, we mature the feature and release it officially. So we iterate on that leap of faith as well.
Interesting. Okay, well, thank you for allowing me to just sort of wend off into the forest a little bit there. That was very interesting, and that was exactly what I was looking for. So thank you. Talking about our topic today, one of the things I've noticed about people in the DevOps space, and for our purpose, DevSecOps specifically, is that y'all are definitely keeping your ear to the ground, and you're always kind of building on each other's ideas. And I say that because we had a DevSecOps guest a few episodes ago, and then another one, Yossi Applebaum, who heard the first one and wanted to add to the conversation. And now we have Nir Valtman, who has some further extensions to some of the topics we discussed before. So, at this point, I'd like to recommend these episodes with our past guests. And I think, at this point, we will now have a sort of DevSecOps trilogy of sorts. And a little spoiler alert, we got another one coming up next week here on another aspect. So, Yossi specifically discussed asset visibility and vulnerability last time. And so you reached out to me to discuss what you call behavior-based security as an extension topic. So I'll let you explain in full, but based on my limited knowledge, I get the sense that we're talking about the concept of introducing security into the development pipeline in a way that keeps both the finished product and the work environment safe from attacks and breaches, but also not sacrificing the flow that developers need to be in to progress their work and finish tasks on deadline. So can you talk about a little more about this concept of behavior-based security, and specifically talk about what's considered normal developer behavior and how we determine that idea of normal?
Yeah. So the way that we're looking at essentially security in general and behavior-based security is that you have three aspects that you need to protect. And you need to protect the developer. It can be the developer that uses your corporate resources, or also the developer account, like GitHub. You can use your account in the corporate or outside of the corporate. So that you need to protect the developer. You need to protect the source code, which is whatever your source code management as GitHub, Azure DevOps, GitLab, Bitbucket. And the last thing that you need to protect is also the product itself as it's being developed. Mm-hmm. The approaches to protect each one of them are completely different. Mm-hmm. With one thing that is common. There's something that needs to come up with a history of behavior. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Please.
A developer account can be compromised. Right? It's not uncommon, and as a matter of fact, I don't know if you saw, there is on September of last year, mm-hmm. GitHub published an alert that warned developers essentially about account takeovers with phishing attacks. Right. Not only that, developer tokens are sometimes tend to find themselves in source code repos, like as a token to authenticate. Mm-hmm. So it's not uncommon to see developer account takeovers. And the way to protect developer account takeover is essentially by looking at the historical behavior of each developer. And by saying historical behavior, it can be based on the audit trail that you have, on commits, on pull requests. So the more data you have, the easier it is to make a decision. Okay. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Maybe a developer that clones, 3 repos in a sprint, maybe like 3 services that the developer works on, is okay. But then the same developer now clones 30 repos mm-hmm. In an hour. It smells like source code exfiltration, right? Yeah. It smells mm-hmm. like someone tries to steal the code. So this is an example of identifying an abnormal behavior for the developer. If you look at the flip side, a build agent can definitely clone 30 repos in an hour mm-hmm. because that's part of the same profile. So it's not about if you're doing too many clones, it's about the profile that you build for that identity. Mm-hmm. Okay? Another example for abnormal behavior is, let's say a developer writes code. Right? Let's say someone committed a piece of code that seems to be malicious, maybe introduce a backdoor, either maliciously or inadvertently.
Yep.
Okay. And in many cases, the way that you write code is pretty much the same. Of course, you have your metadata patterns like days and hours of weeks where you commit code. But for example, the way that maybe your commit message may not be the same, or the code that you just wrote may not be the same as you typically write code. And therefore, think about it like a signature that you put on a paper. The capability to identify whether it's the right signature for the developer is very important to protect both the developer, the source code, and your product. Right? Because this is like that, by the way, that also happened with the PHP hack when someone planted a backdoor into the source code of PHP, and it passed the pull request. So it's just a moment before the code was merged, someone just caught it. So that's just an example of a use case. Another example, protecting your source code, behavior-based. Think about most of the breaches that you saw recently, even with source code exfiltration. I mean, could you reduce that risk if you just minimize the permissions to least privilege? I mean, it's very common to have improper access management to source code.
Again, the sort of speed before safety kind of thing.
It's what?
Again, the sort of speed before safety kind of thing. It's just like leave it open. We can just grab it whenever we want it kind of thing.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you could find which permissions are being used, and based on that, could reduce that to least privilege, you would reduce the risk and the blast radius of a potential attack. Plus, not all permissions are equal, meaning you may have the ability to write code to a specific repo, but you will not be able to write code to the specific branch that is being deployed to production. So do you have a risk? Maybe you don't have risk. So that context with the historical behavior is really important to avoid false positives and annoying developers.
Right.
As a matter of fact, you probably want to have a mechanism to re-grant permissions whenever developers need those permissions back. So think about a use case where instead of developers asking a permission every time they need access to a repo, you can say if a developer asks a permission to a repo where he or she had that permission in the last 90 days, automatically re-grant it.
Right. Okay.
You can come up with a logic that makes things simpler, behavior-based.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And the things that are coming through that are anomalous is just because. So is it kind of like, if an unusually large amount of money is charged to your credit card from Great Britain, and your credit card says, "Did you mean to spend £100 on a hardcover book?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have weird taste. I'm sorry. Yes, please release it." Is it kind of like that, where it's detecting like weird things that it has enough of a sense of like the flow of the developer that it can tell when the developer's not doing what it's expecting it to do?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, that's pretty much how it works in our case. But I'm a big fan of chat ops. And the thing is that developers don't like to be shamed, and you don't want to put it all over, right? And the best way to identify something like that, if it's an account takeover, you probably want to notify the developer and ask, "Hey, Chris, did you just push that piece of code?" And it's very simple. If it's a yes, all you need to do is to teach the model that it's okay. And if it's a no, you need to kick off an incident.
That's it.
So it's very clear what you need to do with that message.
Right.
Okay. Of course, there's feature creep. What happens if no one responds and such? But that's the general idea. On the flip side, if it's an insider threat, and someone plants a piece of code that doesn't seem to be their piece of code, but still seems to be risky, there is another workflow. You can say, in that case, I do want to notify someone else. I do want to either send it via chat ops to the relevant maybe owners of that product, or anyone that reviews that pull request, or maybe
other team members or whatever.
Other team members, because I mean, security can probably look at that, but chances are that they won't have the right context.
It's going to take too long for them to sort of make an official judgment.
Exactly. But the people that review code frequently, they will know the context.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So even if they're not the security experts, they will be able to know if this is a backdoor or not.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
It's not a vulnerability. It's a logical check in many cases. But yes, you may also, if your culture says, let's put everything on a pull request, then you can say if the developer didn't respond from the previous case, right? If the developer didn't respond on the chat, then put it in a pull request. Okay, so it can be, multiple steps that you add in the process.
Yeah, there's a fluidity
that you have the right controls.
Right.
And it also, even the response is behavior-based.
Yeah. So, okay. I want to move from that to, because I wanted to ask more about the, I like that part. I'm glad we talked about that, but I also wanted to talk about, I think you said there was the third part, which is like the security within the code versus the security of the writing of the code and so forth. So in a blog post from Stack Overflow, the organization said that based on their own data, that 1 out of every 4 users who visits a Stack Overflow question copies something within 5 minutes hitting the page. The blog emphasized that Stack Overflow is largely based around this concept, allowing yourself to learn by seeing successful code produce, get ramped up to working code faster, and reduce frustrations. However, they do mention that it's important to do some basic practices to, quote, prevent bugs or safety issues from sneaking into your code, which, might be a little like telling college students with a paper due in the morning to use Wikipedia as a starting point, but you better do your own research as well. So in your experience, Nir, can widespread use of devs copying prefab code lines from Stack Overflow impact behavior anomaly detection and security, in which security system is attuned to detect not just packets, but unusual anomalous events in the system?
Yeah, so the thing is that it's not uncommon to copy and paste from Stack Overflow. As a matter of fact, when I looked for one of the JSON parsers, I saw that the top result on Stack Overflow was actually an insecure way to parse the JSON format.
Yeah.
Right. Which is again, it's common. And the thing is that if you are a developer that typically copies from Stack Overflow, the model for that developer will look like you typically copy from Stack Overflow. If you use ChatGPT, the model will look like you always use ChatGPT. Thing is that in many companies, they also have linters. So even if you copied something directly from Stack Overflow, you would typically have your own annotations on it. You will change it to the way that you like to write the code, maybe tabs versus spaces, whatever, right? So you will still have your own version to it. And eventually if you have linter checks, you will also need to pass the linter checks. Right. So at the end of the day, it may flag as anomalous if it doesn't adhere to the same behavior. But not everything is machine learning. In some cases, you need to take very deterministic checks and run them. So for example, if that JSON parser is added, you can check if it's used securely. And this is a very simple check that you can run.
Okay.
Right? It's a string check. It's not anomalous versus not anomalous. So when you combine those two, then you get either this is a vulnerable code or this is another type of a risk that I need to weigh in on.
Gotcha. That makes more sense. I appreciate that. So I had a recent guest, Jack Nicholson, no relation, talked with me about ChatGPT and what AI realistically can and cannot do now or in the future with regard to automating processes, versus, replicating thought. So, and similarly, Jacob DePriest of GitHub told us more about GitHub Copilot, which is aimed at automating some processes as you navigate around GitHub's almost limitless possibilities. And, so that sparked something because you had mentioned GitHub Copilot specifically. So, the optimistic talking point for these learning enhanced tools is always that they will allow already skilled developers whose skills are beyond doubt to do the great work that they already do, but faster, thanks to having the necessary tools practically springing to their hands every time they need them. But of course, we know, again, whether it's Wikipedia for college students or ChatGPT being asked to write journalism or even poetry, that high-powered tools like these are constantly looking to be exploited by people looking to cut corners in terms of thoroughness or safety. So, Nir, can you speak more about how tools like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT have impacted developer behavior and security?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of repetitive tasks that developers have that essentially GPT-3, for example, or 3.5, or look at 4 that is coming out soon. Those models essentially help you to accelerate your work. Our developers also use Copilot. They're pretty happy about it. But the thing is that when I look at them, because I also care about how developers behave with their IDEs, when I look at them, I see that in many cases, they see the suggestion, they said, makes sense, but they just need to make additional changes. So it's not taking everything and making it that easy, but it does a lot of that work that is quite significantly and maybe quite significantly repetitive.
Yes.
Right? So at the end of the day, you will still need to add your own tweaks.
Yeah. That's the kicker, I guess.
Exactly. It does educate you a bit. If you think about it this way, yes, maybe there is a use case that you didn't think about that ChatGPT suggested you to check, and nulls, whatever, right? So that's great because it can improve the quality of the code, but it also comes with a risk. And the risk is that you need to know where the code is written and where it's sent. Because there's also privacy implications or IP implications that if you give the wrong company the capability to send your code to ChatGPT or any other company, and they opt in to share your data all over, that is a risk. Meaning your source code can actually be exfiltrated, and someday it will appear on someone else's computer as a suggestion.
Right. Yeah.
Not even talking about secrets that may go out, like hard-coded secrets.
Just your style. Yeah. Bite your style.
Exactly. Which is why I speak with a lot of security practitioners, and many of them asking those types of implications in case they want to enable that productivity for their developers, because everyone sees the value. Just need to figure out what are the security risks that can be mitigated or minimized. Yeah. In that case.
Yeah, and I think that's probably apparent, and maybe it seems like I'm being sort of overly pedantic about this, but a lot of our audience and listenership are people either just getting into the space or are entry level, and one of the things we hear in other aspects of cybersecurity is always that we have a new candidate and they know how to use the tool, but they don't know why they're using the tool, or they know that you're supposed to do this process, but they don't know why they're supposed to do it. So again, I think just the idea of having your own analysis in there and not just copy pasting or relying on ChatGPT to tell you what you want or what you need, or Copilot, there always needs to be sort of like your own brain double checking it and so forth, because I think far too many times it's why is this insecurity in here? It's like, well, I did the thing, I pasted it off of here, and all these other people are pasting it off of here, so just something worth remembering. Not everyone is 10 years into their career and stuff, so always worth reiterating that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So now that we've addressed some of the potential issues stemming from normal developer behavior, can we talk about solutions? Like, what recommendations do you have for developers and dev team members to make sure that these new ways of working aren't skipping on the sec part of DevSecOps, as it were?
Yeah, so I'd say that there's a few things that's worth implementing, either by developers or by the development leadership teams. At the end of the day, if you have a capability to check for maybe even new vulnerabilities that you will introduce, that is a very easy step to take, as opposed to, let's say, I'll add a scanner, whatever scanner it can be. It can be static code analysis, software composition analysis, secret scanning, whatever. Okay, anomaly detection. At the end of the day, developers have their own tasks. They're measured by product deliverables.
Yes.
And product teams not necessarily prioritize security as a functional requirement. As a matter of fact, it's typically a non-functional requirement that gets deprioritized.
And a lot of times is just seen as an obstacle or not my job, I suppose.
Exactly. So what I've seen to be successful is that you can say, first, let me run all the scanners that I need to run, but let's enforce something that is called zero new defects or zero new high severity vulnerabilities.
Yes.
And in that case, if you can run a scan, even in the context of the developer, let's say a feature branch, before they even open a pull request, and provide them that feedback directly, in that case, you can get a great win, because the developers know that this is a new thing they introduced. and they know that that they're in the right context to fix it. Think about an issue that was introduced 2 years ago. Yep. Maybe that the developer is no longer in the company, right? So this is one. The second thing is also making sure that the things that developers work on are not necessarily not everything has the same risk, right? You may have new findings coming up on a product that you're working on, but hey, maybe it's not that important product. Yeah. Maybe it's only internal, and the risk is of a static tool that runs scans is inaccurate. So also, if you're thinking about at least the concept that I really like, chat ops, send a message directly to the developer, ask the feedback. The developer will likely say either I'm on it or it's not a real risk.
Okay. Yeah.
The developer will rarely say, I don't have time for that stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a way to think about it. Okay. There are other areas where it's more of an incident response that can be implemented. And that's something that touches more of the hard-coded secrets in code. In hard-coded secrets in code, it's not uncommon problem. As a matter of fact, almost all companies that onboarded into Arnica have secrets in the code.
Okay.
Actually, I'll rephrase, have high severity secrets in the code. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's worth doing is also figuring out an approach to prevent those secrets from being introduced in the code. Right. There are multiple ways to do that. But the key thing is that when a secret is introduced, or when you know that a secret is going to be pushed, find a way to mitigate that risk as quick as possible, either by blocking that push, which is not ideal because user experience is being impacted. Developers don't know Git commands. Well, many developers don't know the Git commands.
Yeah.
And the other option is, let's assume the developer actually did push the secret. Make sure that it's fixed within a few seconds. If you can run some automation around that, even better. Right.
Great. Love it. So now we want to talk a little bit about, again, for people who are either new or just thinking about getting into this area, for new developers and those considering the tools and technologies that'll be part of their daily workflow, I imagine will be progressing and changing at a fast rate. So do you have any advice for the future developers to make sure that they know their skill set inside and out and can use these kind of time-saving tools safely and responsibly?
Yeah, I think that there are a few things that they can do. So first of all, developers can look for vulnerabilities in their own source code. There's a ton of open source tools that can help them to identify vulnerabilities.
Got it. Okay.
It can be in software composition analysis and in static code analysis, secrets and such. They can run it by themselves on their laptops. If they really want to go to the next level, maybe they can implement, let's say if it's an open source and they work on GitHub, for example, use GitHub Actions, add those checks automatically. So every time that you push code or every time that you open a pull request, you'll have those checks. But this is on the developer side. If you're in a corporate hat, you may implement those things a bit differently, maybe because you want 100% coverage, maybe you want different types of feedbacks. But at the end of the day, developers can utilize open source. It's warmly recommended. With a caveat that in many cases, open source software can also be risky. You can download a PyPy package or an NPM package that actually has a backdoor that will go and steal your GitHub token and send it somewhere else. So there's also, the pros and the cons of using open source, but there's also where you can run certain reputation checks. You can check the practices within each repo. Again, there's a lot to do there, like simple things. Go to the repo, check the OpenSSF scorecard, which is a Google project that identifies which practices are implemented in each open source repo. Or check whether that package is implemented. Check if that package is maintained.
Yes.
To know if that's going to be a risk for you. It can be a security risk or an operational risk, right? So these are a lot of things that you can do on your own laptop and run those checks.
Yeah, and just
again, edit in pipelines or.
That's what I was just going to say. That ultimately, these should be standard stops on your journey. Then, yeah.
Yes.
So for to go one level back, we're imagining sort of fully fleshed out developers here, but for students and people who are trying to get into the developer space and especially the security aspects of the job, can you talk about some skills and experiences and projects and other indicators of competence that they should be doing and listing on their resume, say in college or on their way to getting their first job, that would help them kind of stand out in the pile?
Yeah, I'd say, the basic stuff that the developers or techies, at least, that want to get into security, I'd say there are a few interesting projects that you should probably look at. There's all the star goat projects.
Yeah,
there's a web goat, Rails goat. There's a juice shop, which is also a great project that you can find certain vulnerabilities in it. You can scan the source code. You can do scans dynamically, real time. If you're interested in maybe repos security, which is not security of your product, can also be the security of your own environment. You can look at GitGoat, which is that's the piece that I wrote.
Yep.
So look at all of the GOAT projects. Essentially, that's one recommendation to get more of the offensive side of the things.
Yeah.
Also, there's a nice project by OWASP, which is called ASVS, which is Application Security Validation Standard.
Okay.
That will help you understand better what are the checks that security are typically looking into. It's not only about the secure coding; it's more about how do you design a system securely? Where do you put the right authentication? How do you do the input validation conceptually? It's a fairly long document, but it's a really good read to learn more about security. And by saying security, I mean application security. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
I'm not talking about security in general.
Sure. Yeah. Now, to that end, I mean, in doing these GOAT projects and stuff, is it a matter of and then documenting it afterwards that you can sort of, if you're a newcomer, that you can sort of show a potential employer that you've sort of learned these things this way? Do you have, does that count as sort of like an experience, or?
It's an uncertified experience.
Yeah, right.
Not something that you can go and show off with it. You can.
That's more of like the learning portion of it.
It's the real learning curve.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking then is are there kind of like projects that you could create yourself? You could create an action plan for a dev team or something that you could show I've thought about this. I have the skills to do this in a theoretical way, even if I don't have a company that's asking me to do it yet. Like, do you have any advice for sort of showing competence, even if you haven't sort of entered the job space yet?
Yes. So in that case, I would warmly recommend to look for open source projects. I mean, assuming that you already learned those skills, what you can do is, I mean, I know that at least on our side, when the CTO, the head of engineering, when they want to hire developers, they just look at their GitHub profile.
Okay. Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what they contributed. Can be code, can be pull requests, can be issues that they created. That's a very equal resume to the one that you may have on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Even better, because it shows you're competent,
hands-on, like you can actually sort of follow the trail.
Exactly, which is like, if you really want to get into this, go to open source projects, even those that are not security projects, and find certain vulnerabilities that you're interested in. As a matter of fact, there is an open source project called SemGrep, which scans code statically. And it's so flexible that it allows you to write your own rules. So you can write your own rules on what you believe that would be the next vulnerability, clone a bunch of repos that you're following, identify if there are any vulnerabilities that you can find that no one else found yet, and report on them, either as an issue, as a pull request. If you create pull requests, that's phenomenal, right? And if you can script your way to do that, it's even better. There's a guy that his name is Jonathan. I forgot his last name. He's on the Kaminsky Foundation.
Okay.
And he's pretty active in OpenSSF. There is a Slack channel for that. And he actually built a talk on how we opened pull requests at scale for open source projects when he identified simple things like, do you use HTTP instead of HTTPS? Bam, bunch of pull requests, right? So there are ways to build that at scale as an interesting project. And I warmly recommend doing that. Not everyone will do that, but that's a way to do that. If you ask me this versus certifications, go towards that direction.
Okay.
If you need certifications,
can you talk about what certs you especially think are beneficial in here?
So if you want to be a bit more on the offensive side, try the OCSP.
Okay.
And if you want to be more on the defensive side and work more with developers, I would say go for CSSLP by ISC Square. I mean, I did the CSSLP. I think it provided me a bit more tweaks where I know that I had places to improve. And I was experienced when I did it. So I think it's still beneficial to do that, even if you have a few years of experience and want that certification.
Nice. So as we wrap up today, we just discussed your job tasks at CEO of Arnica. But if you'd like to discuss your company more, especially types of services you provide, here's your chance to do so.
Thanks. So as I said, we're protecting the developers, the source code, and the product.
Yes.
Few things that are quite unique about Arnica is that I'm a big fan of showing risks and not hiding them behind a paywall, which is why showing all of the risks, source code risks, secrets, permissions, misconfigurations that you may have in the environment, all of that is what we built as a freemium for unlimited users, unlimited time. And then the automation that I mentioned, some chat ops, Git ops, these are the things that are essentially paid. Put it aside. The real value is just go ahead and look at your own projects. Start with that. The main differentiator that we have is that we're actually taking an approach that is what we call pipeline-less security approach. And a pipeline-less security approach means that you don't really need to change any pipelines.
Okay.
You have 100% coverage from day one as you just go ahead and integrate Arnica. Not only that, we have a very specific logic that actually fixes problems. So let's say a developer pushed a new secret. We have the mechanism to automatically rewrite that secret for the developer with a phenomenal user experience.
Nice.
And that's the thing that is important. Right?
Yeah. You have some user experience because the CEO is making sure that you do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or maybe the DevOps team or security team wants to reduce your permissions to least privilege. Awesome. We have a self-service capability that allows you to get your permissions back. Again, that piece of automation and the secrets, we have a couple of patents that we filed on that because it's quite unique the way that we do that. But also, think about tracking traditional AppSec tasks like, hey, there's a new static code vulnerability. That's great. We'll report it in a dashboard. But then the additional capabilities is because everything is pipeline-less and you don't need to change pipelines, we send that directly to the developer. Say, hey, Chris, there's a new vulnerability we're going to introduce. Remember, there are new high-severity vulnerabilities. There's a new vulnerability we're going to introduce. You should probably fix it. And then click on whatever you have on Teams or Slack, whatever the button that makes sense to you. And then if you don't respond, we can put it in a comment on the pull request or even annotate your code in the pull request.
Right.
And we'll tell you, that's how you fix it.
Got it. Yeah.
While you review the pull request. So everything is around contributing to the developers rather than blaming or shaming them.
Yep. Or hamstringing them.
Exactly. And that's the main differentiator and the main value that we provide.
All right. One last question. If our listeners want to know more about Nir Valtman or Arnica, where should they go online?
So you can go to arnica.io. That's where our content is. Our blog is also there.
Okay.
Sometimes we post interesting stuff over LinkedIn. that's also worth following us there. That's mainly where you find us.
Fantastic. Well, Nir, thank you for joining me today. I really enjoyed this next block of knowledge about in our DevSecOps series that we seem to have found ourselves in.
Likewise, Chris. Thanks for your time.
And thank you to all of you who have been listening to and watching the Cyberwork podcast on a massive scale. We are awfully glad to have you along for the ride. And before I go, I would like to invite you all to visit infosecinstitute.com/free to get a whole bunch of free stuff for Cyberwork listeners. Our new security awareness training series, Work Bites, I love this thing, featuring a host of fantastical employees, including a zombie, a vampire, a princess, and a pirate, all making security mistakes and hopefully learning from them. I've watched a bunch of these videos and they're fantastic. Also, visit infosecinstitute.com/free for your free cybersecurity talent development ebook. It's got in-depth training plans for the 12 most common roles, including SOC analyst, penetration tester, cloud security engineer, information risk analyst, privacy manager, secure coder, and more. Lots to see, lots to do. You got to go to infosecinstitute.com/free. And yes, the link is in the description below too. Thanks once again to Nir Valtman and Arnica.io. And thank you all so much for watching and listening. And until then, we will see you next week. Take care now.